How's it going, guys? Needless Space here, and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be talking about Destiny 2, and I'm going to cover 10 things that we would love to see in Beyond Light, and well, actually maybe even beyond that. Some of these are going to be pretty viable and could happen right away, and others might be a bit outlandish and we might not see it all, or at least not for a very long time. Let me know down below in the comments which of these you would love to see, or maybe even something I didn't add into the video that you would love to see in the future of Destiny 2. Alright, well, let's jump right into it. Alright, so the first one, let's just get this one out of the way. That is Sparrow Racing. So I know Destiny did implement this in the past for a very short time, but it ended up causing more problems than anything else for the developers. Rewards could be things like Sparrow mods or even cosmetics that you can throw on your Sparrows, and it'd give players even more of a reason to be excited about getting rare exotic Sparrows. That way they can show them off in the next race. This could even be something that's only implemented once a season or even once a year, and I'm sure players would still get some enjoyment out of it. But this is one of the ones on the list I don't really see happening, because when they did it in the past, it caused a lot of issues for the developers. So number 2, this is one that I wanted to see in the game for a very long time, and that's a raid and dungeon matchmaking that actually works. So yeah, we have the beta version of the matchmaking system, which I'm sure if most of you have tried to use it, this is really all you've gotten out of it. Yeah, it can be difficult doing certain raids with randoms, but I think overall it is still a very useful system to be had in the game. I know a lot of players who have actually shied away from trying out raids and dungeons just because they have to go to external sources to find groups. When Destiny 1 first came out, it took me a long time before I actually wanted to try out a raid for this reason, but once I did, it changed the game for me entirely. I think raids specifically are something every player should experience, and a great way to do that would be to add some matchmaking that actually works. Alright, next up on the list, and something I want to see in the future of Destiny, is a player space. So right now we kind of have the tribute hall, which sort of plays that role, something that gives you a space to visually see some of your accomplishments. But as we all know, when Beyond Light does come out, tribute hall is going to be one of the things that actually gets vaulted. So it would be nice to see something sort of replace that. Maybe it could be something like a guardian quarters in the tower that sort of expands when you complete certain triumphs. Say if you defeat a certain raid boss so many times, you get a little figurine of it on your desk. Or once you complete an entire storyline, you can get a different decoration in the room. I've just always loved games that give you some sort of visual representation of your accomplishments, and I think a new player space would be perfect for that. Next up on the list is something that sort of plays to more of the MMO side of the game, and that's a trading system. Now, whether it be directly player to player or something like an auction house, I think giving the game sort of an economy would definitely bring some more life to it. So imagine players that don't really like doing raids or specific activities, but they want to get a piece of equipment for it, that becomes valuable to them. And I'm not talking just straight up trading weapons for weapons. You could trade gear for masterwork material, legendary shards, essentially anything that you can acquire in the game. Now, this would also require drops to have a much lower drop rate, and you'd also probably have to trash the whole system where you can reacquire gear from collections. Now, this one is definitely hard to see happening in Destiny, and I feel like with the amount of content we have, it's not really viable, but maybe somewhere down the road when there are tons and tons of different gear options, this could be something that might be implemented. Next up on the list is something players have talked about for quite some time now, and that's having your ships as more of a direct part of the game other than just a straight up cosmetic. So this could be something like either manually controlling them to get from planet to planet, having some sort of space battle activity amongst other players, or even just allowing players to go inside the interiors. And in fact, if they did that, this could solve the other problem we talked about with having a player space. That could be the player space, is having to go inside of your ship, and this would also give players more of a reason to choose certain ships over others, and more of a reason to farm out the rare exotic ships. Next up on the list is something that's more of a quality of life improvement for the game, and that would be a more streamlined way to pick up bounties. So I can't count how many times I've avoided to pick up bounties before an activity just because I didn't want to go to every single vendor I needed to hit before I jumped in. I mean, there's already so many vendors sitting at the tower, and also vendors on every single planet to get bounties from. I remember when bounties were first implemented in Destiny 1, they just threw them on a bounty board. Something like that would be much more useful than going from vendor to vendor. They could still have different vendors for different items, but I think something that you have to pick up frequently as bounties should all be gathered from one area. Next up on the list is something I would absolutely love to see in the game, and that is more activity and boss specific loot. So I've always loved the idea in MMO and RPG games of getting specific loot drops from specific enemies. And in my opinion, having this a very low drop rate makes it even better. Not only will it give you a more sense of reward when you finally get the item, but this will give players more of a reason to jump into specific strikes or certain raid encounters. Even if it's just getting certain cosmetics like ships, ghosts, and sparrows, I would still love to have more of these in the game. Next up on the list is something I hope all of you can agree with, and that is less blue drops. There is no reason for me to be getting this many blue drops this late in the game. I feel like only after a few hours of playing, my postmaster is already full, and when you go to check out what's actually in it, it's almost all entirely blue drops. Especially if you play PvP, you know every time you win a match, you get a handful of blues, and I have yet to think of any good reason that we would be getting this many of them. Now, I understand when you're leveling, these can be somewhat important, but this late in the game, we should be barely getting any of them, if not none at all. Next up on the list, and something I want to see in the future, is an expanded inventory, and maybe even the vault. So not only am I constantly filling up my inventory with shaders, I find at the end of every season I have to go through and pick and choose what I want to dismantle in my vault. So with a game that has multiple weapons and multiple pieces of armor and different roles you can acquire for each one, I think it's important to have an expanded space where we can store all these items. I mean, we have 3 characters we can play on, usually multiple sets for each one. And I myself like having different weapon sets and different pieces of armor for doing various activities. I think having a limited space in the vault is only hurting the players. Alright, so the last one on the list is sort of an outlandish idea, but I think it would be very fun to have in Destiny 2. And this one definitely wouldn't be implemented for a very long time, maybe something they would save for a 3rd game. And that is having more races, or maybe even an entirely new faction to play as. So we've all been playing through the eyes of the Vanguard, going through story missions and activities with their motives. I think it would be nice to be able to get a fresh view on things. We could even play as one of the Fallen Houses or a group of Fallen Houses. I think it would open up multiple avenues as being able to play faction-specific dungeons and maybe even areas where you could have some open world PvP. Now I know how this sounds and it's sort of off the wall, but I think it would bring a very fun aspect to the game. I mean, who wouldn't love playing as and gearing up an alien race? Alright guys, well I know this video is a little different from our usual guides, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more content. I will catch you guys in the next video, and as always, good luck and have fun.